The park stretched wide under the fading glow of evening, the golden light spilling through the trees like melted fire. The breeze whispered softly, carrying the smell of grass and damp soil, and the faint sound of laughter echoed across the playground. Officer Lane walked slowly, his boots pressing into the soft earth, his eyes scanning the families that lingered as day slipped into dusk. Rex trotted close beside him, alert and watchful, every sound, every movement registering in the dog's sharp senses. Lane trusted Rex more than anyone. The dog had a way of sensing things that people missed sometimes before they even happened. Lane rubbed the back of his neck as a chill ran up his spine. Though the air was warm, something felt wrong. Something he could not name. Near the swings, a little girl in a yellow dress giggled as her red balloon bobbed above her head, its string wrapped around her small wrist. Her mother sat on a nearby bench scrolling through her phone, distracted by the glow of the screen. A man stood a few yards away pretending to tie his shoe, but his eyes flicked toward the girl again and again, his movements slow, calculated, like he was timing something. Lane did not notice him at first. He was focused on Rex, who had suddenly stopped, his body rigid, his gaze fixed on the man. A low sound rumbled in the dog's throat, deep and uneasy. Lane followed his stare, frowning quietly. Rex began to move forward, his steps deliberate, his body tense. Lane held the leash tighter, whispering a command, but Rex ignored him instead, pulling harder, his nose quivering as he caught a scent that set every instinct on fire. Lane quickened his pace, his eyes narrowing as he saw the man stand fully. Now his expression blank, too calm. He started walking toward the girl, his stride casual, but his hand clenched around something small in his pocket. The air seemed to hold its breath. Children laughed. Parents called their names. But everything felt distant, muffled, as Lane realized what was about to happen. The man was close now, reaching out as the girl looked up with confusion. Rex growled louder, and the man froze for half a second before grabbing the girl's arm. The red balloon slipped free, floating upward as her startled cry cut through the stillness. Lane shouted, but his voice was lost in the noise. Rex lunged, tearing free from his grip, his powerful body surging forward in a blur of motion. The man tried to pull the girl away, but Rex was faster. The impact came hard. Rex knocked into him with a snarl, forcing him backward. The girl stumbled to the ground, crying as Lane ran to reach them. He saw the man struggle to push Rex off, but the dog refused his teeth, bared his eyes burning with protective fury. Parents screamed, some ran to help others, pulled their children close, the scene unraveling in seconds. Lane grabbed Rex, pulling him back, ordering him to release the man. The suspect rolled away, clutching his arm, cursing as blood dripped between his fingers. Lane kept his gun drawn, his heart pounding in his chest. He barked commands, demanding the man stay down, but something in the man's eyes chilled him. Not fear, but defiance, like he knew something no one else did. Lane knelt by the girl, asking if she was hurt. She shook her head, tears streaking her cheeks. She pointed toward the man and whispered that he had tried to make her come with him. Lane felt his stomach twist. The crowd murmured, restless, afraid, as the girl's mother rushed over. Scooping her into her arms, trembling with shock and gratitude, Rex stood beside Lane, his gaze fixed still on the man whose breathing was uneven, shallow. His other hand pressing against his jacket pocket, as if protecting something important. Lane ordered him to move his hand slowly. The man hesitated, his lips curling into a strange smile. Lane stepped closer, one careful step at a time, the grass crunching underfoot. The sounds of sirens faint in the distance. Someone had called for help, but it would take minutes that felt like hours. The man's smile faded, replaced by a flicker of panic as Rex growled again, a deep guttural sound that made even the onlookers step back. Lane shouted again for him to show his hands this time. The man obeyed, but something metallic glinted as his jacket shifted, and Lane reacted fast, kicking it away before he could reach whatever it was. He bent down, picking up a small object, cold and light, between his fingers. It was a vial barely the size of a thumb, half filled with a cloudy liquid. Lane did not recognize it, but something about it made his pulse quicken. The man stared at it with a look that was not fear, but loss, like something precious had been taken from him. Rex barked again, sharp and insistent. Lane called for backup through his radio, keeping his eyes on the man as the crowd continued to whisper and point. The girl's mother was crying softly, holding her daughter tight, while others filmed with shaking hands their screens. Glowing in the growing dark, Lane wanted answers, but none came. The man would not speak. He just stared at the vial and then at Rex as if the dog had ruined something important. Something far larger than one small act in a park. Lane felt a weight, pressing down on his chest, unease crawling up his spine. Rex began pacing restless, his nose twitching as if the scent still lingered in the air, dangerous and unfamiliar. Lane guided the dog closer to the bench where the man had been standing before, and Rex stopped suddenly pawing at the ground, whining softly. Lane crouched beside him, brushing away the dirt and finding a folded piece of paper damp from the grass. He opened it carefully, though his hands shook slightly, and saw faint writing scrawled. Across it, the words smeared but still legible, a list of names and dates, and the first name was the girl with the red balloon. Lane felt his throat tighten as realization crept over him. He looked back at the man who sat now silent, motionless, his expression blank but his eyes alive with something dark. Something watching, calculating, waiting. The sirens grew louder, flashing lights flickered through the trees, casting shadows that danced across the playground. Lane stood up, signaling for the arriving units to secure the man. Rex remained by his side, never looking away from him, even as officers moved in. Lane handed the note to one of them, his mind racing, trying to piece together what he had just stumbled into. The girl and her mother were escorted to a patrol car, still shaken. Lane took a deep breath, his chest tight with a feeling he could not name. He looked down at Rex, who finally sat, his breathing steady, his eyes still fixed on the suspect. Lane knelt beside him, running his hand along the dog's fur, whispering softly, "Good job, buddy." But in his gut, he knew it was not over. Whatever Rex had sensed, whatever had drawn them here tonight, was only the beginning. And as the red balloon drifted higher into the dimming sky, disappearing into the growing night, Lane could not shake the feeling that something far worse was waiting just beyond the edge of what they could see. The flashing lights painted the park in shades of blue and red as officers moved quickly, securing the man and guiding the frightened families away. The little girl clung to her mother, silent now, her small hands shaking as she held tightly to her mother's coat. Lane stood beside Rex, who remained still, his gaze fixed on the man who sat on the grass surrounded by police. The night air felt heavy, filled with questions that no one yet could answer. Lane handed the folded paper to the lead detective, who frowned as he read the smeared list, his eyes widening with disbelief, before turning sharply toward the suspect, who stared back with a hollow grin. Rex let out a low sound, a vibration that came from deep within his chest. Lane felt it more than he heard it, a warning that something was not right. The suspect's calm was unnatural, his posture too relaxed, as though he knew what would happen next. Lane stepped closer, his instincts urging him to stay alert. The suspect's eyes flicked briefly to the side, and Lane followed his gaze to a black sedan parked near the far edge of the lot, its windows dark, its headlights off. It had not been there when they first arrived, or at least Lane did not remember seeing it. Rex began to grow restless, pulling slightly at his leash. Lane signaled to another officer, pointing toward the car, but before anyone could move, the suspect started laughing, the sound sharp and strange echoing through the night. He muttered something under his breath, something about time running out, and then the sound of an engine roared across the quiet park, headlights flaring to life. The black car sped forward, tires screaming against the pavement. Lane reacted fast, pulling Rex aside as the vehicle raced toward them. Officers shouted weapons, drawn bullets shattered the windshield. But the EMS car did not stop until it slammed into a lamppost near the playground. Sparks showering from the broken light, the driver slumped motionless against the steering wheel. Smoke rising from the hood, Lane ran forward, heart pounding, shouting for backup, to check the man in the grass. But when he turned back, the suspect was gone. The handcuffs lay open on the ground, a thin trail of blood leading into the trees. Rex barked once, then again louder, pulling at the leash. Lane followed into the dark, his flashlight slicing through the shadows, branches scraping against his sleeves, the night closing in around them, every step echoing with tension. The forest behind the park seemed endless, stretching farther than he remembered. Rex led the way, moving fast, his nose to the ground, until they reached a small clearing where the moonlight spilled faintly across the dirt. Lane stopped, breathing hard. The trail ended at an old shed, its door half open, swaying slightly. In the wind, he raised his weapon. Signaling Rex to stay close and stepped inside, the air was cold and smelled of rust and something chemical faint but sharp. The beam of his flashlight caught a small table stacked with vials, identical to the one he had found earlier and scattered. Across it were